Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Kevin Blekicki Show in junction with the Ryan Show. This is episode number 43. Hope you're having a great week. Hope whether you are celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever, you are having a wonderful holiday season and you are spending it with the ones you love the most. We have a great show for you this week. We are going to break down the college football playoff. It's a mess. The first round was a disaster. It went exactly as planned, so maybe I guess it wasn't a disaster in that sense. But we are also going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs moving from Arrowhead Stadium and moving out of Kansas City, Missouri, and moving to Kansas starting in the year 2031. And of course, we have to talk about the Mets. They keep selling off pieces and it's starting to look like they're not going to be contenders this year, and they are just trying to have a fire sale, which is not the way that they should have gone about this offseason. I have a lot to say on that. But first off, let's start off with the college football playoff. Now, this is single handedly the worst playoff system that we have in American sports. It makes no sense. It doesn't reward the better teams. We're having these first round games on campus for teams that haven't won their conference, and then the teams that are conference champions get even more time off, get almost an entire month off from their last game in the first week of December for conference championship weekend, and have to wait almost an entire month to play a football game in the college football playoff. It takes too long, and the national championship ends in mid January. It concludes on the 19th. It is a horrendous playoff format, and we're not even going to talk about the teams that are getting in yet. We will start off with that Friday game between the 9 seed Alabama Crimson Tide and the 8 seed Oklahoma Sooners. Now, this is one of the only good things about the college football playoff. That first Friday night game on campus, it's one of the best nights of the college football year, and it was a banger of a game. Alabama gets the job done 34-24, and they were a team that a lot of people thought didn't deserve to make the playoff field in general, with 3 losses and especially getting blown out by Georgia in the SEC championship game. But they go into Norman, Oklahoma on a Friday night, and they play a team that beat them earlier in the season, and they get the job done. And this was Oklahoma's game to win. They were up 17-0. All of a sudden, they throw a pick six, and the game is tied at 17 going into halftime, and Alabama has all the momentum. And from that point on, they just steamrolled Oklahoma. It looked like they scored a touchdown. They were getting back into this game, but Oklahoma straight up blew this game, and they have no one to blame but themselves. And look, now they set themselves up, the Alabama Crimson Tide do, to have a matchup with the number 1 seed Indiana Hoosiers. And look, the Indiana's going to be favored in this game, but I think that Alabama absolutely could win this game. This is a time in history where Indiana has never been here before. I mean, they might just be happy to be here, but you know what? If I'm Indiana, job's not done. Job's not finished. We didn't come all the way here just to get here. Now, this is a really tough spot for them to be in, because they're going to be going almost a full month without playing a game, and it's not on campus, and they have to go to the other side of the country and play a game in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl after Alabama is already battle tested with a win on the road, in a night game against an SEC conference opponent. So that already beat them this year too. So I mean, this is Kalen DeBoer's first playoff run as a head coach at Alabama. Of course, he went to the playoffs with Washington, but this is his first experience with Alabama, and I'm sure that he's definitely in talks with Nick Saban about what to expect because there's no one for Kurt Cignetti to talk to, the head coach at Indiana. There's no mentor. There's no one there to be like, hey, this is how you compose yourself. This is how you get it done. Because this is new. Indiana has the second most losses in the history of college football. And this year, they're undefeated, Big Ten champs, and they're the number one seed in the college football playoff. This is unprecedented territory for them. I think this could easily be a game where they slip up and Alabama is the hotter team. They played a game in the playoff, and so they got the rust off from the regular season. And this is what we saw last year too. All the teams with the byes lost to the teams that played in the first weekend. So I would absolutely be putting Indiana on upset alert if I was a betting man, but I'm not. I don't do that stuff. Now, the other 3 games that we got on Saturday were absolutely atrocious. Miami, Texas A&M being the worst game in the history of the college football playoff. A 10-3 game, missed field goals. Now, granted, it was windy. That definitely had to do with it, but this was just a boring, ugly, disgusting game. Texas A&M, and this is what happens when you're in these super mega conferences. Texas A&M was playing the lower competition in the SEC all year long, and hey, don't forget they damn near almost lost to South Carolina if it wasn't for a crazy second half comeback and an absolute disgrace and a collapse from the side of South Carolina. But as they coasted off, playing an easy schedule. They did go into Baton Rouge and beat the Tigers of LSU, but obviously that did not age well as they haven't had a great year. They beat Notre Dame, but Notre Dame also lost to Miami, and they're not in the playoff. That could have probably been their best win of the season. And then they go on the road to Texas, their last game of the year, and they lose that game. And then they play Miami, and they can't move the ball worth a damn. And Marcel Reed ends the game with an interception. So just an absolutely ugly and disgusting game. And oh my God, I can't wait. And I really hope that Ohio State puts belt to ass to the Miami Hurricanes. As someone who likes Notre Dame and grew up a Notre Dame fan, I'm not talking about them getting into the playoff over us. They beat us. My problem isn't with them getting into the playoff and not us. I'm more upset about the G5 getting in. But while we're on the topic of Miami, oh my God, Michael Irvin has to be one of the most insufferable people on the entire planet. Now, in the world of sports, it's not new for people to go to, and watch their alma mater play. It's not uncommon for them to come back and watch their team. But it is weird because it's not something that we do in other areas of the world. It's not, we don't, like, if you work at a grocery store and you haven't worked there in 10 or 20 years, you don't just walk into the store and be like, man, I used to work here. And you don't buy anything, but you just watch people getting rung up at the cash register. You watch them stock the shelves and you're like, yeah, man, that used to be me. That's not something that we do. Sports is the only industry in the world where it is socially acceptable to go to a place that you used to work or that you used to get an education and to just be there and to just watch people who may or may not even know you depending on how involved you are with the university. It's a very weird dynamic, but I mean, Michael Irvin has taken it to the max, and I'm sure there's people out there who find this entertaining, but there's something very weird about a grown man watching a football game on all fours. Michael Irvin always does this. He's on all fours. He's like, he's into it. It's so cringe. It's so weird. Go off, King, if that's what you want to do, but like, I find it very embarrassing that a grown man is on all fours watching a football game. And then afterward, he posts a video on social media where he takes his belt off and he hits a garbage can with a Texas A&M jersey, talking about belt to ass. Brother, it was 10-3. I mean, this game almost went to overtime at 3-3. They only scored a late touchdown. I mean, this is embarrassing. I mean, he is a grown man, by the way. I'm not trying to police the way that other people act, but Michael Irvin is just a grade A cornball. And I don't even really, I think that being corny is whatever. I'm not really someone who hates on people being corny, but Michael Irvin just takes it to just a weird level that just, yeah, I mean, you're an adult. You're an adult and you're on your knees, your hands and knees watching a football game. Oh my God. I hope that Ohio State puts 100 on them. I really do. But we're going to talk about the rest of these college football playoff games because they went exactly as we thought. Ole Miss, despite having, Lane Kiffin leave for LSU, they still are able to boat race Tulane 41-10. And, James Madison played well in the second half, but they ended up getting boat raced 51-34. So if you're doing the math at home, the two group of 5 teams got outscored by a final score of 92-44. I'm sorry, but we can't have this. We can't. I mean, the group of 5 does not belong in the college football playoff. I'm sorry. They do not play the same level of competition as the other Power 4 schools. And I've always been an advocate for not just, undoing the realignment, but for having a relegation program where you tie the group of 5 teams to the Power 5. We rebuild the Pac-12 and we make it so that for over a 3-year span, the top team in the G5 in their respective conferences gets to move up to the Power 5 if they have the best record for a 3-year span, and then the worst Power 5 team drops down to the Group of 5 team, to the Group of 5 level. That way, if a Group of 5 team is that good and they consistently dominate their conference, they have the chance to move up and they get to prove themselves. But I mean, especially if we have a 12-team playoff. We're supposed to be having the 12 best teams in the country compete for a national championship. If the G5 wants to schedule a hard schedule, non-conference, go undefeated, and then beat a bunch of SEC and Big Ten teams and make it to the college football playoff that way, fine, they deserve it. But, I mean, especially with James Madison, they're only Power 5 opponent being Louisville and losing. And Louisville is a mid ACC team, and the ACC was just won by a 5-loss Duke team. So this college football playoff has been embarrassing, but this show has not been embarrassing. And we will be back after these messages. And we are back with more of the Kevin Blekicki Show in junction with the Ryan Show. And there was some major news that came out of the NFL this past week as the Kansas City Chiefs are no longer going to be playing games in Arrowhead Stadium after the year 2031. They're getting a brand new stadium, and it's not going to be in the state of Missouri. They're moving to Kansas. Now, they weren't able to get public funding for the stadium. It's unfortunate. It sucks. I wish that they were able to stay in Arrowhead because it's a legendary stadium. It's an iconic stadium. We don't have many of them in the NFL. The only ones that I can think of off the top of my head are like Lambeau Field, Soldier Field, which the Bears are trying to move out of that. They're trying to get a new stadium. Maybe you want to go Foxborough, but there's very few actual historic landmark stadiums left in the NFL. And it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame because Arrowhead has one of the best home field advantages in the NFL. The Chiefs fans over there are very loud. It is a great environment. And they're just going to be building one of those stupid dome stadiums so that they can get, a Super Bowl over there more often, so that they can host Final Fours and more concerts year round. And it just sucks because football is supposed to be an outdoor sporting event, and you're supposed to have the elements in there, especially in Kansas City, because it gets really cold over there. And it is quite a home field advantage. And, I know the Bills are building a new stadium, but I mean, at least theirs is still outdoors. And, that they kind of have, they have like it's not a roof, but it's more of like an awning or something to kind of at least protect a little bit. But it's just a damn shame. It's a damn shame. There's so much history in that building, and it sucks that it has to go away. And I wish that the Chiefs were able to stay in Missouri, but you know what? They're moving on to bigger and better things, I guess. I want to transition to the Mets because that's where the bulk of this part of the show is going to take place. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching this or listening to this program, you and me have something in common, and that is we both don't know what the hell the Mets are doing. Because the Mets just traded away Jeff McNeil to the Oakland A's for an 18-year-old rookie pitcher who pitched in the Dominican Summer League. And that's all they got. And not only that, they had to send over money to the A's to offset his contract and to pay for his bonus as well. This is the world that the Mets are, and you know what? There's going to be a lot of people in Mets world that are going to celebrate this because Jeff McNeil's name was one of the names that was brought up, and I mentioned it in previous shows as one of the people in the locker room that was causing issues. And there was definitely a divide between him and Francisco Lindor. So he is part of the reason why there were issues in the Mets locker room. And this has been going on for years. But damn it, Jeff McNeil was a good player. He won a batting title. He won a Silver Slugger. I think he had a 284 career batting average with the Mets, which is nothing to to poo-poo about. It's a very good average. He was a contact hitter, and he was a guy that could play 5 spots, in the field. He could play second, he could play third, and he could play all 3 outfield positions at a pretty decent clip. I don't know the exact defensive metrics on it, but I've always been a big Jeff McNeil fan. And he is part of this core that hasn't won anything. And right or wrong, David Stearns is seeing the results on the field, seeing that it's not good enough, and he's trying to make changes. However, he has done nothing to add to this team. This team missed the playoffs. And since the beginning of the offseason, they traded away Brandon Nimmo, they released Edwin Diaz, and they released Pete Alonso. And now they traded away Jeff McNeil for literally nothing. So they haven't, and the only guys that they've brought back or got in return of that is an aging Marcus Semien, who did just win the Gold Glove, but whose bat has been declining the last couple seasons, and Devin Williams, who is a very good closer, but is also coming off the worst season of his career. And going from Edwin Diaz to Devin Williams is a downgrade, unfortunately, unless he has like an ERA of like 1.5. Because he's just not going to be as good as Edwin Diaz was. And so now that there's, they missed out on Munetaka Murakami. He's going to the White Sox. And when I first saw that, I genuinely thought that, he is Japanese. I thought perhaps there was like something, with the language where he thought that he was signing with a different team. Like maybe he thought he was signing with the Chicago Cubs and not the Chicago White Sox, or he was signing with the Boston Red Sox and not the Chicago White Sox, because the White Sox don't do anything in free agency ever. So the fact that he signed with the White Sox, very surprising. If the Mets weren't going to get him, I'm just glad he didn't end up going to the Dodgers. It was only on a 2-year deal, and he will be 26 at the beginning of this Major League season. And obviously, he will be 28. Well, he will be entering his age 28 season when the 2-year deal is up. So, maybe the Mets, if he develops into a good hitter, we'll see how he transitions from the NPB to the MLB. But then also the Red Sox traded for Wilson Contreras. So that was another first baseman that the Mets could have gotten to replace Pete Alonso. The Mets also, I forgot to mention, they signed Gregory Polanco. Or no, Jorge Polanco, I should say. I mean, and so he will be playing DH as well as some first base. And so what we were told by David Stearns is that he was all about run prevention. And he wanted to make sure that this defense was at its best. And so he went from Pete Alonso, who apparently isn't that great of a defensive first baseman, to a guy in Polanco who's never played any first base. So good job on you, David Stearns. But to me, it is clear that the Mets are not trying to be competitive in the 2026 season. You can't look at this roster and think that this team is trying to put out a winning product. Because even if you want to put, even if you want to say that having Edwin Diaz back and having Pete Alonso back and having Brandon Nimmo back are just nostalgia goggles, that they're not actually trying to move the needle. You can't look at us as Mets fans and say that getting rid of them makes our team better, because they don't. Losing Brandon Nimmo hurts this team. Losing Edwin Diaz hurts this team. Losing Pete Alonso hurts this team. Believe it or not, losing Jeff McNeil also hurts this team. Jeff was never going to have a roster spot, especially with that being locked up by Marcus Semien. It is a shame that it went out like this. I will remember the good days of Jeff McNeil, Jeff McHits, the squirrel, Happy Jeff jumping on, Brett Beatty jumping on his back after wins. I'm going to remember the good old days. But his time was up, and I'm waiting for Starling Marte to go too. I love him to death, but he's too old, and we got to get younger. And there's just so much work that needs to be done with this team that I just don't think that there's enough for them to overcome and be a competitive team in 2026. If we're just let's just say they brought everybody back and they didn't add anything. They still needed to improve that rotation. I like Jonah Tong. I like Nolan McLean. And yeah, we can see Brandon Sproat in the lap. You still probably need another ace and at least a really solid number 2 starter. And not have so much pressure on these young starting pitchers. So you ideally needed a 1A and a 1 and a 2 in the rotation. And not to mention that, you do have some guys coming back like Brooks Raley and AJ Mentor's coming off a major injury. So hopefully he's able to bounce back. We don't know what he's going to look like. But they don't have Gregory Soto. They don't have Ryan Helsley. Now they don't have Edwin Diaz. They don't have Tyler Rogers. So they lost all of their bullpen in the back half. They got back, Devin Williams. They got back Devin Williams. So they're going to need a few more bullpen arms anyway. And so and this is just assuming that we brought back Pete, we brought back Edwin Diaz and Nimmo. You're still talking about you need a center fielder and you need a third baseman. And so we were going to go assuming if we kept Nimmo, then we wouldn't have had Semien. So we would need a second baseman, a third baseman, and a center fielder. And 2 really good starters and some bullpen help. So we would have needed a really good offseason to just field a complete team, not even a World Series team, just a complete team. And now you're adding the fact that you don't have Brandon Nimmo, that you don't have Pete Alonso, that you don't have Edwin Diaz, that you don't have Jeff McNeil. There's just so many holes in this team that already didn't make the playoffs. And what bothers me most about this is the fact that Steve Cohen, after the season in 2025, said that this wasn't good enough, that it was a failure. And, he told us to come out to Citi Field, show up, show out, and be loud. And we did that. We set attendance records. And then we missed the playoffs on the last day of the season. And what do? They blow it up, and it doesn't look like they have any interest in rebuilding this team. And it's just a shame. It's just a shame. And we deserve better, because we were under the impression that this team was going to be competitive in the 2026 season, especially now, because there's no salary cap, and we're likely headed towards one after this season, when there's probably going to be a lockout. And so now Steve Cohen's money isn't going to mean as much. And there's going to be a level playing field, and you can't just outbid everybody. You're going to have to be an attractive destination for people, and without money, that doesn't really seem like a viable option in free agency and in trades. But that does it for this edition of the Kevin Blekicki Show. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed watching it on YouTube or over the radio waves. If you want to follow me on social media, follow me at Kevin Blekicki on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. And we'll see you next week, and have a Merry Christmas.